Okay, we're back live. Is everyone on board here? Dana Half, are you with me? I don't even think I have Matt Hicks with me.
No, I'm with you, Brian. Dana's making candles.
There he is. I got Dana.
A birthday cake, candles.
There we go. So we all took different spots. It's just like everybody's home. So Anthony's budget really hasn't changed that much. He's held back 15,000 on his revenue because he's not sure he's going to get it. Other than that, I think he is cautiously optimistic. So maybe there's a chance we can put that back in. So right at the moment, I'm going to ask if there's any questions for Anthony, and if there isn't, we're going to move on. Are we good? Okay, thanks, Anthony. Who you got next?
Assigned counsel.
Okay, assigned counsel. Page 2 and page 26. Chris, were you handling assigned counsel? Chris is on the phone. Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. What do you have, page 2? Okay, so with assigned counsel, wow. The revenue is up on caseload reduction because I'm pretty sure they had moved where the money was going to fit the program we have here. I don't know if Mike McCure, do you want to weigh in here?
I'm not specifically familiar with what the assigned counsel office submitted, but I would say that between the two offices, there's been significant revenue this year, and that most of what Tom's doing over there is funded.
Yeah, so Tom's got a new number. I wondered if they added something or if they changed the mix of our caseload.
I'm just not sure.
And I don't
Brian?
see Tom on. That's why I didn't know if maybe you knew. Al, know that?
The Tom's revenues are right from the grant awards, so I can confirm those for you.
Okay, that's what we needed. Very good. Now on to the expense side, 26, 28. Okay. And I'm looking down through them, guys, and I'm not seeing any significant changes on page 26. Page 27, I think I'm in the same boat unless somebody sees anything that sticks right out, just mention it. I don't know if there's anything that anybody has questions on, but 28 is pretty much the same.
I have a question on page 27.
Okay, go ahead, Dana.
On page 27, middle of the page, the overload cases, 4540.
Okay,
124,000, that's like way up from previous times. Why do we have more overload now?
I
Is that
think
because it's a
that's,
new office?
yeah, Al can take care of that. I'm sure Mike can.
I
address
can
that.
speak on overload a bit too, but,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
you know, I can only speak of it generally because I'm not looking at, I don't have Tom's budget in front of me, and I haven't spoken with Tom on this point, but I know generally because I have an employee on a maternity leave and I have a vacancy that arose during COVID. They've adjusted caseload where they've reduced our caseload number slightly, and that may be upping his overflow number. In addition, I think he may be preparing for a spike in all the driving offenses that have yet to be resolved from COVID, and that there's a lot of pending AUOs in those types of matters that get automatically overflowed to the assigned counsel office.
Okay, is that where you were going, Al?
Yeah, and I'm just gonna let them know in the, back on the revenues on page 2, out of the $359,000 in caseload money, this 120,000 is how much of that grant is the overload cases, the overflow cases that Mike just spoke about. These were a way to mitigate some of the minor traffic infraction stuff rather than having to hire a new attorney. If you remember that, if you remember that process.
Yeah, it's a cost saving measure.
This 120,000 is the expense side of that $300,000 grant revenue up above. It's one of the pieces of the 300,000 above.
Very good. Was there something you wanted to add, Chris, or are you just listening? He's just listening. Okay. Very good. Any questions on assigned counsel, or do we move on now? Very good. Probably public defender next. Yeah, Mike, we'll go right with you now.
I have some committee matters I need to address. Do you want to deal with the
Yes,
budget?
do those first.
Okay. One, these are staffing requests to backfill positions. I was going to backfill the part-time assistant public defender position by having one of the supervising attorneys wants to go to part-time, so she would move to part-time. One of the assistant public defenders would move up to the supervising attorney position, and this would create a vacancy at regular assistant public defender full-time position, and I'd request permission to backfill all 3 positions.
With that, so that's
Move it.
all your current positions. There's nothing new. It's just people stepping up and one new hire.
Yeah, there'll still be a vacancy of a full-time attorney, but I'll be filling the supervisor position that's vacated, and I'm filling the vacant part-time position. And it's a bit of moving around, but I think it's getting people in the right positions. And actually, technically, these moves do reduce. One, I just want to remind, I've had a vacancy for a bit, and that's certainly payroll that hasn't been getting paid. Then these 2 new positions as far as the supervising assistant public defender, and well, actually all 3 positions will go in at base pay, where none of the positions were being paid at base pay because they all had experienced individuals in them. All 3 of these positions will be starting at base. And they're also funded, and in the budget process, I can talk about revenue and expenses.
Did you move it forward?
Move it.
Do I have a second?
Dave O'Brien?
Dave? Any questions or further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed. Next, Mike?
Um, I will just address it very quickly. I had here before I submitted, or when I submitted the agenda, we had not yet had some progress on office space, but there has been substantial progress on office space where plans are being made for us to get a portion of the former Board of Elections office and move some things around that way. So I'm just bringing that up generally, and I think that's moving along. And the computer upgrades, data storage, I can address some other time. I know that this is a budget meeting, so I'm ready to talk about the budget.
Okay, any questions for Mike on routine business? On to the budget.
Here we go. Okay, we're back on page 2, I believe. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, the revenue has been very good for the year, and I would expect it to continue next year in that thankfully before the pandemic set in, we were able to straighten out all of our finances with ILS and all of our contracts so that during the pandemic and up to even as recent as this morning, we continued to receive substantial revenue from ILS. I think the number to date this year is $1,452,525, and we did receive $288,000 this morning. That's what the treasurer advised me earlier this morning. So those contracts are in place and those distributions are paying, and the Harrell Herring money continues to be paid. And I think in the settlement conferences that we have with ILS, there'll be discussion about whether we can anticipate any of that funding being reduced or being pulled. But to date, none of that's been discussed.
Okay.
So I don't anticipate and again, we are subject, we're in a lawsuit settlement agreement where really the funding is court ordered, would be my interpretation.
Okay. So on the expenses then, Mike, on page 25.
I have a question on revenue, Brian.
Oh, okay, Matt, go ahead.
Just why under caseload reduction did we change from 250,000 to 130,000?
That's the balance to Tom. That might
Remember,
be
Dom's
that.
went up, Mike's went down.
That might be the 120,000 to Tom. And Tom and I might have to straighten that out in that we might be both double counting somewhere. We should probably make sure that we have the Harrell Herring money properly divided between us, because I think it was last year we moved money, and I'm just not sure if that was about to happen again this year or not. My budget's basically flat from last year.
I get it. The two revenues together are flat. Get it. All right. Thank you.
Very good. Expenses, page 25.
I may have some expenses. They are budgeted, and these are be 2020 expenses as far as minor expenses with respect to moving the office space into the Board of Elections area. There might be some minor expenses with respect to equipment and furniture.
And that might be on this year's budget instead of next year's though.
That would be this year's budget, and I do believe the funds are there, and we're under budget.
And the request is down from last year also. Or from the amended number from this year. Okay, is there any other questions for Mike? Anything that anybody wants explained, or will we have him here? Good job, Mike. Good job on catching up with all that contract money and Harrell Herring. I mean, it's been a process for 5 years.
Yes, it has. It's been exciting.
Good job.
If
Thank
I,
you, sir.
if I could speak to the chairman, Chairman Ward for 1 minute, I did explain to him I would be getting him an email explaining all of these changes, and I still plan to do that. I just have not yet, and I can address it at next month's meeting as well.
Fine. I'll wait for the email.
Thank you.
We had some fire advisory board appointments. Tim and Glenn. Glenn and Tim.
Tim, are you available yet?
Good
There's
afternoon,
Glenn.
everyone.
Hello, Glenn.
I'll get started with our budget stuff. Well, Tim's getting organized from coming back downstairs. Revenue-wise, we don't have any changes. It's pretty much the same as last year. We are waiting to get our PSAP grant from the state, so we don't have that.
That's page 12 and 13 for anybody that's following along here.
We don't have those numbers yet from the state to put in.
Okay. You're guessing in the same area, or?
It should be in the same area. There shouldn't be a big change with it. We're just waiting for it to be pushed down from the chamber.
Okay.
Any revenue questions? Page 67 is our expenses. So we do have our .121, our regular earnings.
Yep.
One moment. Our 121, we had a typographical error. So that should be 1.1 even, as opposed to the 1.009 that's there. And we
It should
have the
be-
break.
So it's 1.1 million even?
Yes. That was a typographical error and I didn't catch it before it went to print.
Okay.
The good news with that is that because public safety was awaiting the number for the PSAP grant, that grant's $135,000 to $150,000. So there's an increase there of let's call it $91,000 in their .1s on the expense side, but there's going to be an increase of $130,000 to $150,000 on the revenue side. So that error isn't as big as it would be in some years.
Will I have that number, Chris, by preliminary budget, or will I have it as soon as finance?
So in a normal year, absolutely, we would have it by the time the tentative budget came out. This year, for obvious reasons, is completely wonky. I think if we don't have it by the time the tentative budget is due, we go ahead and put a placeholder in,
Okay.
average of the last 5 years minus 10% or something like that, just to get us in the ballpark.
Very good. Well, at least offset that 90,000. Very good. Go ahead, Glenn.
As far as our .4s, just overall on .4s, we were able to cut 11.5 or 11,500. So overall, our .4s are down from last year.
Good.
And barring any questions, that's our budget presentation for public safety.
Okay, see any questions from anybody? No? Okay, I saw Tom Chaffee's on there now, so we'll go back to Tom just for a
We
minute.
have,
Or did you
we
add?
had some.
Oh, that's right, we have a few amendments.
Yes, fire advisory appointments.
Yep. Are we going backwards or are we going to stick with us, Brian?
Well, we'll finish it with you guys. I just want to make sure I get Tom in here to discuss anything that we discussed and did wrong.
If
Go
just,
ahead,
if you
Don.
want to let Tom go, we can stand by and let him get his stuff taken care of.
What do you think, Tom? Are you ready? You're muted. Tom's really muted.
Very savvy with this. Am I good now, Brian?
You're good now, Tom.
All right. Okay. Basically, Brian, what we did is we submitted our budget based on last year. In 2019, we actually went over about $125,000 on our criminal and family line, but we were able to pick that money up through the ILS money that we get. This year, we're very low on our payout. We're only about $40,000 into our county money at this point. So that's kind of the gist of it. And basically, everything else is pretty much the same.
Well, your revenue was up quite a bit, but it's about the same amount that Mike's down, and that's probably from your overflow cases, is the way it's written. Is that what it is? Stuff you took that they didn't handle?
Correct.
Okay.
And we used that money in 2019. We needed that money in 2019. But this year in 2020, I don't see us having to use it because with the COVID, we're so low.
Okay.
We're good. And we're cutting down. We're not paying travel time because everything's virtual. And then in the future, I think what's going to happen is a lot of the courts are going to be virtual for a long time. So I think we're going to actually be down as far as like travel expenses for our 18B attorneys.
Very good.
So.
Thanks, Tom. I think we got it covered then.
Okay, thanks, Brian. And again, I'm sorry for the delay.
That's okay. We've had delays all day. Appreciate it. Okay, Glenn. Tim.
All right, so we can do EMS real quick. I have the EMS coordinator right here with me. So you can't see him, but he's over there. He has kept his budget flat for this year. The only increase is in the regular 0.121 as per the salary that's in there and any of the benefits that are in there. No other increases in his budget. And I believe he's probably going to give the business as usual.
Absolutely. I would have it no other way, Tim. Thank you and Glenn for your help.
Anytime, Bruce. If anybody has any questions for Bruce.
Yeah, any questions from anybody on the board? I think we're good, Tim.
Did we do the advisory appointments?
No,
So
that's
we
what we're at.
Sandy, I believe, has 2 advisory board appointments that have to come this time that were brought up at the last EMS advisory board meeting. I don't know if Sandy wants to give those to the chairman.
She's gonna.
Okay.
So since you've been helpful to her, she's gonna be helpful to you, Tim.
Appreciate that. Certainly got my steps in today.
How's your phone working? Ready to go.
He's on
Tim, for the EMS Fire Advisory Board, you have appointments for Allison Broman from Fort Ann and from Fort Edward, William Tokus. Is that?
Yep, that's the 2 EMS advisory board appointments. Allison Vrooman from Fort Ann, I believe they put forth, and William Tokus from Fort Edward Rescue.
Yes. Have anything to add to that? Tim?
No, sir. They're just at the end of this year. So.
Nothing to add, just filling out the appointments of the current people in those positions before them. So just to the end of this year.
Move it.
Next. Okay. Second? You have a second?
Is O'Brien on your committee?
Yeah.
Sue Clary.
Sue Clary. Okay. Any questions or further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then, Tim, you want to bring up the vehicle grants you just received?
We do you want to finish and do the 3410 budget real quick, the fire?
Certainly.
All right, so just rolling through the 3410, and the one revenue line that's in there is the 2655.01. And on my book, it's page 11, which is the sale of fire reports. So the fire coordinator is requesting to keep that at 400 for this year. We're currently at 250. He estimates we should finish out right about 400. So looking for 2021 to keep that at 400. And then moving over into the expense line, he has done a very good job at keeping everything as flat as he possibly can. So there really are no changes other than he's dropped down the expense a little bit. Routine earnings for regular salary is just a regular routine increase. No changes there. He has taken $250 off his equipment line, but still needs to be able to get some new digital cameras for the fire investigators and some fire investigation tools, and would like to complete the fire training simulator attachments that we were unable to do the year prior. So we're down $250 total on that line. The dues and subscriptions, he'd like to keep the same as last year at $1,260. Travel the same, education and development again the same. And he is requesting the increase in the training center cost, just because we've seen over the last year, they started to do a lot of work at the training center. So we've seen the cost increase for maintenance there. So we're requesting to move that to $5,000 for next year. And he has dropped his carpool has been absorbed into our carpool. So we're trying to limit the amount of multiple accounts that are out there. But the 4320.01 repair and maintenance, we're able to drop that to 1,300. We're going to help and absorb any extra costs that may come in there. We're not anticipating any, but if we do, we'll try and cover that on the public safety side of things. And I believe under the testing, 4590, we're going to drop that back to 0. And keep the same.
Did you have a question?
The same.
Yeah, I did, Brian. Under the point ones and then the point nines, why would we in 2018 have workman's compensation of 68,000 and the next year be 1,200, and then this year budget is around 1,400, and then budget 64,000 next year?
Want to take that one, Chris?
To the bottom of page 64.
I think that's one Chris is gonna have to take.
And no attention to the point nines.
There's a cop out.
Let me take a look here.
I mean, it's just one person in that department, right?
I believe, Chris, that incorporates the fire departments in the county as well.
Yeah, that's the county number for workers' comp. Matt.
Then why did we put 1,400 in for this year if it included the whole county?
Because we didn't have any big claims.
And we're gonna have big claims next year?
No comment in a public meeting.
Okay.
I think you can put that together, Matt.
No, but if you look at even the past, 18, 19, 20, and 21, the roller coaster there.
So in short, Matt, the workers' comp number is the workers' comp number for the whole general fund. So it doesn't really matter which department it's in. My guess looking off right now would be that we spread it differently on the 2019 and the 2020 amended budget than we did on the 18.
So we could see that some changes all throughout the entire general point nines, where the number is the number. If you're telling me that's relatively flat, that's fine. It just spread differently, then it's not an issue.
The county number for workers' comp is down about $100,000 this year.
Go ahead,
Then
Al.
we just went from a glass half empty to a glass half full. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, go ahead, Al.
So I can tell you, Matt, that the 2018 and 2021 are probably correct figures. For 19 and 20, remember that that number was down in the pool in one large lump sum. in order to get it into the sheets for Brian, I spread it through based on salaries for 19 and 20. So the blip that you're seeing is I just took the number that was in the pool for 19 and the number that was in the pool for 20. And that really the only way for me to allocate it was based on salaries. So because there was only one person in there, that 19 and 20 is a very small number. I would say that the 18 amount and the 21 requested amount are more accurate because they rightfully include the piece of general fund that's specific to fire that probably was not in my allocation.
It's part of the net cost coming back, Matt, is what it is.
If you add up all the departments, it still comes to the same total, but the way I spread it was based on salary rather than claims. So for 19 and 20, it's based on salary.
Okay, I get it. Learn something new every year. I'm good.
10.5.
Page 66. Personal protective gear.
Yes, sir.
So 6,000 was budgeted in 2020, but 0 was spent. So that's why it's budgeted again, because it will be spent this year.
So we are going to, the fire coordinator is planning to outfit whoever with gear he can this year. A lot of them have aging gear that needs to be replaced. And next year will be the second part of replacing and making sure all the fire coordinators and investigators have adequate personal protective gear.
Okay, because it was asked a minute ago if there's only one person in that department, but there's not.
That's correct. There's not. There's 3 coordinators, the coordinator and 2 deputies, and 6 or 7 investigators.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else for public safety?
So we just have 2 other things.
Okay.
The first is the recognition of our FY20 State Homeland Security Program grant, the SHSP grant. And this is a split grant. So just for the numbers, 57,277, so 57,277 will come to public safety, and 19,093 will go to the sheriff's office. I followed up with the treasurer before this. We will get the resolution data form over and ready for finance, so that can be allocated.
You need a motion to accept the revenue, is that what you're after?
With the budget amendment to finance.
Move the budget amendment to finance.
Move it.
Second. Sue Cleary. Any questions for the discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion granted. Anything else, Tim?
Yeah, we have one final thing to go with those grants. In those grants, we're requesting authorization to purchase 2 trucks to replace our aging trucks. And they're under contract, the same contract for the foreman vehicles. And it's completely grant funded. They're both 40,000 apiece.
Motion for the purchase of 2 vehicles for public safety under the grant.
Oh, Dave O'Brien.
Second.
I have a question.
Question, Dana?
Where do the old cars go? They're not carpool, right?
One goes to carpool and one, Tim told me where it was headed and I can't remember.
Okay,
Our
but
desire,
the purchase is not in carpool either.
correct, it's all grant funded through Homeland Security.
Okay.
But one's going to carpool, where's the other one going, Glenn?
Our desire is to keep it as it is grant funded as a reserve vehicle for the fire coordinator's office and our office.
Okay, that's the portion I didn't remember. Okay, you still need a second, Don.
Need a second? Sue? Any more questions, further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion granted. Anything else, Tim, Glenn?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
District Attorney, Mr. Jordan.
Oh, Mr. Jordan, District Attorney. Good afternoon, Tony. Says he's there, but he's muted. Unmute.
I will be 1 second. Okay, thanks, Matt. Bye. Sorry about that.
There
I
you
thought I was
are.
after, I thought I was after the sheriff, so I was taking a chance to be on the phone.
Roll. You're on.
All right. Are we starting at revenues?
Yes.
I mean, at this point, the only thing we know for sure is that we received our commitment from the state for the victim services, which was up slightly from last year and is actually up slightly from what was originally granted. So that is good news. The rest we're assuming will be, we're hopeful will be the same. We haven't heard anything to the contrary as of this point. But those are also the smaller items. It's the Crimes Against Revenue grant and then the aid to prosecution. But I think combined, those might total 55 grand. Any questions?
No, I think we're good there.
Okay. With our, I guess, are they 0.4s? Is that the right description? I think the one thing I would touch on before we jump here is, oops, sorry, Al's got a question.
Good now.
Before we leave revenues,
Yep.
Tony, can you talk to me a little bit about the 30,000 that's in your commissions and rebates account?
That's what we estimate for the billing for prison cases.
Okay, because it shows none in 18, none in 19, and none in 20.
There should be some in 20.
Is it maybe is it possibly in a different account?
We've always, well, the accounts where they get placed has moved around over my years, but let me see. I mean, that's what we call it. It shows in my 2020 budget.
We have adopted and amended. We don't have an actual amount. Did you not take in any money this year yet?
No, we've been paid. I'm not sure where, but see, I think that's one of those things, when it comes in, it doesn't come to us, it goes in the general fund. So I don't think that gets, it doesn't come to our department per se, like the grants do.
Yep.
I think that goes into the general fund.
No, it would go to your department, Tony. I'll research that. You may see that 30,000 on a different line in the tentative budget.
Okay. I know that's where we put it in 2020. I don't remember where we put it in 2019. It may have been lumped into all one large number. And I think there was a request to sort of parse them out if possible.
I have a feeling it's in the 3089, but I'll research it.
Okay. That is down a little bit this year, but we're billing and they're paying. So
yep,
that's a positive.
Thanks, Tony.
Yep. I think the big difference is from last year. Last year, our budget was an awful lot of speculating and guessing as to what impact bail and discovery changes would have and how would everything fit together. And, I think we a little bit of a break because of the COVID pause allowed us to get caught up, because one of the things that was not anticipated was the retroactive effect of the discovery changes. But, because of the efforts of Tim Hardy's group and IT and others and your support and funding, I think the systems we put in place have worked. And I think an illustration of how much more significant it has been than what we expected. And I don't know if Terry's on, but with our IT folks in Albany through the digital evidence management system, they were anticipating on historic numbers about 1 terabyte of data would be stored. We're on pace. Their estimate for this year is 3.5 terabytes, which I guess is an awful lot of information. And so The good news is it's through our provider. It's still less expensive. That's based on what Terry has said versus building additional storage here. But there is an awful lot of data that is being pushed through from law enforcement to us and then out to defense. So the system's working, which is encouraging. And
Well, you'd have to say it probably hasn't been taxed too hard yet, has it, Tony? Just because of the COVID shutdown?
No, we've continued to push stuff out. I mean, our numbers year to date are up over last year as far as new files opened.
Really?
And because we've continued to act as though there were no delays or stays, because that buildup, we couldn't for a while provide discovery to courts and other documents to courts, and that just builds up a huge backlog. So as far as turning stuff over to defense, we just kept doing it as we were going along. I mean, that was one of the great things with what IT did, is everyone was able to work from home during the shutdown. So all cases, I mean, we had a little bit of a slowdown. We were up on March 14th, about 17.5%. And on June 15th, we were down about 4.5%. So you can see a little bit of a slowdown in new cases during that time period. But we were able to get the evidence in and push it out so that when we came back and were live and in court, we weren't figuratively and literally behind the 8 ball. So, and now we're up. So it's, the law enforcement's been active, and unfortunately, I think the shutdown and the COVID has had a huge impact on domestic violence cases and substance abuse cases. And that's, just talked about it this morning with Sergeant Spezio. I mean, that's been a real problem in Washington County. So, but, fortunately with the systems in place, we haven't had to make choices as to what types of cases or where we could provide coverage. We've been able to continue to deliver the same coverage that we were at this time last year.
That's good news. Okay, so on your expenses, is there anything that you wanted to highlight, or?
No, our goal was to keep them all flat and the same as last year.
Appreciate that. Any questions from the board on that? All good?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
Thank you all very much. Sorry for the delay.
Yeah, so we've been full of delays.
Phone system's up and working again, so that's good.
Oh, excellent news.
Yep.
The sheriff is up.
Okay. Looks like John Mitchell's on to do the sheriff's budget, is that right?
You got us, John?
Yep, trying to come up. Got us now.
There we go.
Okay, and the sheriff may jump in. He's on a trip, but he may jump in.
Yeah, I'm here.
There you
I'm
go.
here now. I'm pulled over on the thruway.
Hope you're not getting a ticket.
No.
That's revenue.
Okay, let's go to the revenue section, page 8. Anything you want to highlight there, John or Sheriff?
Are you?
No, I think it's.
Go ahead, Sheriff.
I think it's pretty. I think it's pretty much the same as last year. I think
Okay.
actually it's very close.
Any questions on revenues from the board? Okay, we'll move on to expenses. Page 51 through 56.
You get the revenue for all page 1.
Anything here you guys wanted to highlight?
I think I think our pages are numbered differently. Is this a 3110, Sheriff?
Yes,
Okay.
that's admin.
No, again, as far as the salaries go, I mean, obviously those are those are the salaries based on the numbers that we had, and the only thing, and I didn't touch back with Chris. Now I don't know the answer to this because I was out of town last night as far as the union, but it's close to ratifying the contract. John, did they, do you have any word on that?
I have not heard.
Okay. So if they do, there's going to be retroactive pay. We didn't know if it, when it was going to be ratified or how to handle that. So that's not calculated into this for the retroactive pay. We did.
So that might be on this year's budget then.
Well, what we did do is we figured it at 2.5, I believe.
But if it's ratified, that wouldn't be next year's budget. That'll be on this year's. That's all I'm clarifying.
Oh, yeah. No problem.
Okay.
Yeah. I forgot we're still early here.
Is that what you call it?
Well, early in the process.
Okay.
No, and then the other stuff, I don't know if it comes through on your end, but I did put comments in on each one of the line items just to kind of let you know what comes out of those different line items. And I did do a 5-year history on every line item, and I cut everything I could cut in each one of the line items. I don't believe any of them went up that don't normally go up a little bit, but for the most part, I tried to cut as many of the line items, expense items as I could. And it was difficult, a lot of, like, I'm sure like most of the other departments with, the COVID and people not in the office, not using as much paper, not using as much telephones and everything else. So some of those lines were skewed a little bit by that. But other than that, like I said, I tried to, use the 5-year history and then tried to cut everything that I could.
It was greatly appreciated. I can tell you that. It really shows through in this budget.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember. I thought I was going to be able to get back to my office in time, but of course, there's stuff on the throughway today. But yeah, I know it's quite a bit. There's quite a bit cut. Let's put it that way.
Anything you wanted to add in there, John?
The only thing with the stop TWI money, I went with the same as last year, and we have a rollover account that the state is telling me I have to cut back. So that's why I'm going to keep it the same, even though I know the revenues are going to be down. And I use the rollover money to keep making the departments whole.
Okay.
And I have to get that rollover account down before the state comes in and says, makes it a strong arm anymore.
Understand.
Yeah.
Under the jail then?
Hey, Brian.
Okay.
Yes, I got Al Nolet.
Under Sheriff Winchell,
Yes.
with that rollover money, if they're encouraging you to kind of tap it a little bit,
Yeah.
do you have any equipment needs for the program that maybe you want to look at that normally we wouldn't ask for?
Yes, actually, really the only thing I can buy with that is Alpha sensors.
Okay.
They won't let me buy radar units or anything like that because unless we were going to put them specifically in a DWI car. So I can buy Alpha sensors and things like that. And I hope to get all the departments up on those. I was going to buy a bunch this year out of some of the money that I had this year that I didn't, well, I spent it on stuff for the fair, but I didn't use it. So I'll have all that stuff for the fair next year.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll move on to the jail.
Yeah, jail basically is the same with .1s. And then any of the other stuff, again, when you move to the other expenses, I did put comments in on each line item just to let you know what comes out of there, how it was figured. And again, there was quite a few lines I was able to cut quite a bit on some other different lines, doing a 5-year history again. But there's nothing really different. The contracts, the contracts.
Sue Cleary has a
contracts
question.
kind of thing.
Chair Murphy, I just keep thinking about the amount of money that's spent and the capacity. Is there any way that we can put in to have the capacity reduced at the Washington County Jail? And I know I keep asking this, but it seems like a logical step to go if it's possible.
Yeah, so I think, I'm not sure, I think we're around 60 right now. It has been going up. So it's kind of hard with COVID. I mean, we basically were shut down. We weren't taking hardly anybody. And we certainly weren't taking any board-ins. We weren't taking, a lot of parole violations weren't coming in during that time. So we did get down quite a bit. We got down to 30 or so. But as the courts opened up, and as mostly it was the courts opening up, the crime certainly hasn't gone down. So now we're at 60. It's hard to say, by the end of the year where we'll be at. But I think, as it goes forward, it's definitely something that we can look at to see where we're at by the end of the year. I just have a feeling, and especially because of our calls for service and the type of calls that we've been handling, and I don't know why, but it seems to be a trend statewide. The more serious crimes have been occurring, and we're getting more arrests where defendants are being held rather than released at arraignment, which is what was happening, which kind of drove the numbers down as well pre-COVID. So I would say, to answer your question, that I would look, obviously we would look at this over the next few months into the end of the year and see where we're at, and then certainly can have discussions about what we could do.
So the capacity number is, what's it, 185?
Yeah, 189.
189. So we're.
But we've never been. I've been the sheriff since 2012, and we were in the 130s since then. And then when we did central arraignment, is when it went down below 100. So I think it's possible to go higher over the next few months, and I feel like it's going to, and of course, unless there's another quarantine or whatever, but it's kind of with the quarantine and everything that was going on with that was what drove those numbers way down, and I think that we will probably be settling around what we were last year, which is around 80 or 90 or whatever, but again, over the next couple of months, we'll look at that, and then certainly look at what we can do.
Thank you.
And I can say that, our hopes obviously are through attrition with staff, looking at the possibilities of not filling those positions, and we've already kind of started doing that now. But again, we do have the staffing requirements from the state, so it is a little bit of a tricky situation there.
And there's still no movement there, is there, Sheriff, on anything so we could work with Warren County and, have just certain pods open? There's been no movement at the state level on any of that, right?
No, there's been talks of different ways around the state of doing different things, but really with the Commission of Correction, the way things are currently are the way they are, and I think because they don't, they're kind of the same opinion. It's hard to predict, what's gonna happen count wise, but the problem is classifications, and even though you have fewer people in the jail, the classification issue, people of certain ages can't be around other people of certain ages. People with specific crimes can't be around people with other specific crimes. So really, you're not, the ability to close a pod or do something like that is extremely difficult to try to do something like that because of the strict classification that have come up over the past few years. And then when you throw the one-on-ones into the mix, that means that somebody comes in under a certain type of medication, which the Commission of Correction has extended to include just about any kind of medication you can think of at this point, requires an automatic one-on-one, which means an officer has to sit there on that particular inmate. So if we get 4 or 5 of those in on the weekend, and in fact, this happened over this past weekend where we had 3. I think we had 2 one-on-ones, then we had 3 females that were one-on-ones, and then we had people being brought in by outside agencies that were, dope sick is what we call it, but they qualified also as to be under a one-on-one. So, even with if we reduce staff, for instance, we would be hurting to try to have enough people there because we were stretched thin with our current staffing over this past weekend. And those are the kind of things where it's just it's difficult to gauge, the types of scenarios that could come about. But with all that being said, obviously, if we maintain a low level of inmates and continually, and it's not related to COVID or anything else, then we certainly can look at different alternatives, and I would certainly, welcome that.
Hicks?
Brian, this is sort of a you/Al question on page 58. And I know this is just getting in the weeds on the accounting part of it, but I'm just a little lost and just need an explanation. In the middle of the page, there's under administration jail, the state retirement, and at the very bottom, it's under correction state retirement. And it's just, the numbers are all over the place. The totals look to be reasonable overall, but it appears we didn't budget in either place any state retirement costs. We haven't expended any this year.
Well, remember that's the case where the net cost went away again and they were on a line on their own. So they haven't been put back yet, and the bill doesn't get paid till December, so you don't have the cost out yet.
The bill gets paid in December.
Yes.
But still, even in 2019 actual, between the two, it's a little over 508,000.
It was on its own line because they did away with net cost.
Right, but it's 508. It's 508,000 for the actual in 19. We don't know what it is in 20 yet, but we're only budgeting about 461,000 for 2021. I wouldn't think that cost would go down.
Unless we have less people employed.
In corrections?
It's a possibility.
It's just, I see I don't understand the accounting and why it's all over the place, but I sort of get it, but I'm concerned about the total isn't enough. Especially since.
Yeah, we know.
Al, go ahead.
No, this is probably making Chris grin a little bit.
Put your mask on, Chris.
But I think, Matt, because this issue continues to come up, changing stylistically for 18 and 19 and changing back in 20 is creating a little bit of a problem. What I would like to offer, and when it comes to the fringe benefit, if we could report out a report just on fringe at finance so that we can yank all of these out in one concise report so you could see the package together. So right now you're trying to make sense of a number that was done X and then a number that was done Y, and now it's done Z. rather than trying to make sense of 3 years that weren't done the same, would it be beneficial to have a just fringe report at finance where you could kind of see 18, 19, 20, and 21 holistically?
Why not?
Yeah, I guess so. And I know it's how you disperse it throughout general fund, and the totals are the most important part.
Right.
It's just that, we were on a webinar with the comptroller last week who said because they finished their fiscal year April 1st and the market was down, we're looking at an 11% increase in our retirement costs to budget for next year. And we're
I gave Brian and Chris the estimate. The estimate came out Monday.
Okay.
And where our budget will support the increase.
Throughout the whole thing, the grand total, and
it appears that we're right on the money still.
okay. So you do these things so we ask questions so you can educate us about this, right? No.
Well, I'm glad they asked, Matt, because we couldn't figure it out when we were putting the numbers in.
Okay, good. So I don't feel so bad. I wasn't the only one who couldn't figure it out.
Oh.
All right.
Very good. Is there any other questions for the sheriff on the jail budget?
And the only thing, sorry, I just remembered, we are negotiating with the company that took over for Glens Falls Hospital with the BHU contract. So it's a little up in the air, but if anything, it'll be less than what I budgeted for.
Good. Anything from you, Don?
You have Sue Clary, Brian?
Oh, go ahead, Sue.
Sheriff Murphy, is that a 1-year contract, or how often do you do that? The contract for the medical services?
Normally it's a 3-year contract, because it's and that we contracted with the hospital and we've been doing it forever with the hospital. The hospital is actually the one that's getting out of the BHU business. So they have another company coming in. So I would say that because it's another company, it would probably be a 1-year contract. But we're kind of in the early phases. I just met with the representatives, and we looked to cut some costs from what we were paying the hospital. And I think that's going to be something that we can do. But being that it's a new company, I would say that it'll be a 1-year contract so that we can see how it works.
Thank you.
And Ms. Claire, that's only behavioral health. Our medical is through Hudson Headwaters.
Hey, thanks for that clarification, John.
Is that contract also up for Hudson Headwater? Or are they doing it yearly or by 3 years?
That was a 3-year.
Yeah, that one's a 3-year contract. That's not up.
Okay. Well, if anybody's got any questions, now's the time, because I think we're completed with today's episode. Thank you very much, Sheriff. Thanks, everyone.
No problem.
Finances
Get back on the interstate.
There you go. Public safety, you adjourn. Thanks, everyone.